Are you considering a 55 and older community? Well, the truth is, they just aren't for everyone. In fact, I've seen many people move in, but soon realize they've made a big mistake. So today, I want to talk about the type of people who might struggle living in a senior community. Hi, my name is Casey, and my wife and I live in a 55 and older community here in Corona. And as a real estate agent, here's something you might not expect me to say. But the truth is, 55 and older communities just aren't for everyone. In fact, I've seen people move into a senior community, and after they've been there for a few months, they've realized they've made a big mistake. So today, I want to walk you through who probably shouldn't move to a senior community, and not to scare anyone away, but to help you decide if it would be a good fit for you. Now, most people considering a senior community focus on all the benefits. Now, things like single-story homes, the low-maintenance yards, the beautiful amenities, and the social events you'll find there. And these are all great reasons to consider moving to a senior community. But it's important to make sure the community you pick is a good fit for your lifestyle and your personality. So let me share who might struggle living in this type of environment. Number one, people who really dislike HOA rules. Now, if you really don't like rules, living in a senior community could end up making you feel very frustrated. Now, most of these communities have architectural rules, landscaping guidelines, parking restrictions, and a long list of rules and regulations that you have to follow if you live there. And for some people, that kind of structure is exactly what they're looking for in retirement. But if that's not you, this kind of environment is going to feel very restrictive, and it's going to make everyday living feel very uncomfortable for you. So if you're the kind of person that enjoys the freedom of doing what you want with your property, like painting with bold colors, parking where you want, or making changes without having to ask for permission first, this lifestyle isn't going to be a good fit. And it's not about whether these rules or restrictions are good or bad. It's about your personality and whether or not it's going to be a good fit for you. Number two, people considering multi-generational living. Now, if your long-term plan includes your adult kids or your grandkids living with you full-time, you really need to do your research before making a decision. Most 55 and older communities allow short-term visits only, but long-term occupancy rules can create issues, even if it's your kids or your grandkids. So if you think that your adult kids might move back with you at some point, or your grandkids living with you as part of your retirement plan, then a 55 and older community may not be a good fit. And these are things you really need to consider before you buy a home in a senior community. And number three, people who thrive on high energy. Now, if you love being in the middle of constant activities, nightlife, in a fast-paced environment, not all senior communities offer this type of lifestyle. Now, there are some exceptions. Places like the Villages in Florida, they promote and offer a very high energy, party-style atmosphere. And a lot of people I speak to absolutely love this place. But most senior communities, and especially the ones you're going to find here in California, have a much quieter and a much slower pace. And our local communities of Trilogy and Terramor are definitely much calmer, quieter, and predictable than communities like the Villages. And some people really love this, but I met others who find it to be much slower than they expected. So if you're looking for a high energy party atmosphere, you really have to do your research and spend time in that community to see what life's really like, because you don't want to pick a community that ends up feeling much more quiet or slower paced than what you were expecting. Now, before we move on, if you're finding this video helpful and you want more insights about buying or selling in a 55 and older community, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. Now, I post a new video every week about housing issues that really matter to seniors. And number four, extremely budget conscious seniors. Now, if you're extremely concerned and worried about your money in retirement, you might want to really review the numbers for the community that you're considering. Between HOA fees, special assessment or Melrose taxes, insurance cost, and property taxes, your monthly cost could be higher than what you expect. And these costs aren't always fixed either, so they can go up over time. Now, for many people, the trade-off is worth it because they're getting access to maintenance-free living, popular amenities, security, and a sense of community. But if your retirement funds feel tight, these ongoing costs could create stress, and you definitely don't want to end up feeling financially stressed in your retirement. And finally, number five, people who aren't ready for an identity shift. Now, this one's a little different, but it has to do with the psychological aspect of living in a senior community. So if you haven't fully embraced the idea of getting older or living in a senior community with other older adults, you may have trouble adjusting to life in this type of community. Now, some people happily accept this stage of life, but for others, Moving into a 55 and older community means they're getting old, and that's really hard for some people to accept. But if you're not emotionally ready for that identity shift quite yet, a community like this may not feel like home for you. And it may sound funny, but I often hear people say things like, I feel like I'm surrounded by nothing but old people here. Now, even though these people are the same age as you. And again, there's no one way for people to feel. But for the people that feel this way, they typically end up feeling like life is over or that they made a huge mistake moving to a senior community. And I hate to say it, but I've actually seen people dealing with every single one of these situations that I just talked about. But you have to remember, none of these things mean that 55 and older communities are a bad place to live. And for the right person, they're actually an incredible place to live. And I see a lot of people absolutely thriving in these communities. But I've also seen a few people move in and realize it just wasn't a good fit for their personality or their lifestyle. And these people eventually made the decision to sell and move out. And that's okay too. And I tell people all the time, these communities just aren't a one-size-fits-all solution for everyone in retirement. And the key isn't whether these communities are good or bad. The key is whether they're a good fit for you and how you want to live in your retirement. So if you're considering making the move to a 55 and older community here in Southern California, I'm always happy to have an honest conversation about our local communities. And I'll try to help you decide if our communities would be a good fit for you. Now, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.